Downfall of OCR. Got an obstacle course racing hot take. I think, in my opinion, obstacle course racing has gone downhill for a couple different reasons. The first one is money. It's become more of a money grab, and it's costing people out of the sport itself with the prices just for the entry fee alone, not including like the add-ons and stuff like that, and the travel and gas and shit like that. Second one is the experience. I feel like OCR doesn't give people an experience like they used to. It used to be a lot more grittier, dirtier, innovative, and give you a good mix between different events, whether it be the same brand or not. Third part is beginner-friendly events. We had some companies that catered to like beginners and families that just disappeared, so that really hurt OCR and the sport in general. I'll go back to money first. It's become too expensive just for an entry fee. We'll say like $100 per event. You know, you can't take a family of 4. That's $400 right there, plus gas, travel, food. It just became too expensive for people to do events, take their family, spend the whole day together enjoying themselves. Not just family, but it could be friends, co-workers, different things like that. It just became too expensive to do OCR events, so it put a lot of strain on companies, so they had to keep raising their prices for the people that still go to the events. It just became a big circle of price increases with lower numbers as well, at least in my opinion. People could argue with me about that, but I feel like the less people that are doing the sport, the price is going to have to increase, just because the company's got to like recoup their money and pay for like the insurance and stuff like that. That's another aspect. The insurance has gone up, so it's cost companies a lot more to hold events, just cover themselves with liability in case somebody gets hurt or worst case scenario dies. I feel that the second part of that, as I said, was the experience of OCR has gone way downhill. It used to be a lot dirtier and grittier. What I mean by that is you would do an event and you would come completely saturated in water or mud, dirt, whatever. You might get a few bruises here and there, a couple scrapes. It just felt dirtier and grittier and got people out of their comfort zone more than what it does now with the push for like standardization and I don't want to say safer practices, but it became almost too safe to a point where it hasn't become fun, because it doesn't get you pushing your limits or make you feel uncomfortable anymore like it used to. We'll say like with someone like the fire jumps and just diving into like really crappy murky water and stuff like that, and someone just like tromping through the woods and whatnot. Like that little aspect sort of went away, got a little bit cleaner. I've seen people that do obstacle course races now and they just look sweaty, like there's no dirt on them, there's no mud on them, or anything like that. Like that was the bread and butter of OCR back in the day, like coming out just like completely like dirty and filthy looking, beat up a little bit. So I think we need to get back to that aspect. I'm not saying go away from safe practices, making the obstacles safe, because we definitely want that, but you got to make people feel unsafe in certain aspects, and like pushing their limits, maybe like height wise, you know, maybe like pushing something or pulling something that, you know, makes people struggle a little bit. Maybe invert the walls a little bit more, just like little tweaks here and there, or just make them look unsafe, but really, you know, like deep down in your gut, they actually are 100% safe. Just little tweaks. The third part of what I said was family-friendly events. We had some smaller, I don't want to say smaller companies because they did go nationwide, but they were smaller in the aspect of like distance and like difficulty of obstacles go away. So you really don't have any entry-level obstacle course races anymore on the national scale that everybody like gets behind, goes to, and has a fun time with their family and friends and coworkers, as I touched on before with money. I'll name the two that really went away was Warrior Dash. That was a fun event. It was very cheap. It was beginner friendly. It got people out of their comfort zone a little bit and got their feet wet into the OCR sport, where if they like that, they might explore other brands and do some harder events, do some little training, get people healthier in general to be able to do those harder obstacle course races. Or maybe they just had such a fun time, they just wanted to stick with that like Warrior Dash obstacle course race because they just wanted to have a nice afternoon with their friends and family, getting dirty, getting wet, at a cheap price point. Same with terrain race. I know that's kind of one of those that's like sort of still here, sort of isn't. But back in its heyday, like 6-7 years ago, that was one of the best beginner-friendly obstacle course races around, where it actually challenged people who wanted to have like an actual challenge, but it also let people experience OCR where they weren't going to like come home beat up and not have a good time. For races, you got to have an experience to give people an experience where they want to come back, or they want to do more events and they look forward to it. Maybe they do want to improve a little bit on their performance from the year before, so they actually train a little bit, be able to run a little bit farther, be able to get like up a rope climb a little bit easier. Just little things like that. Obstacle course racing in general has gotten away from, with that like standardization. You basically can train for an obstacle course race brand specifically because you know what's going to happen, you know what's going to expect. There's really not too much changes going on anymore within the different brands. I know Savage is always trying to be innovative. They always like change their rig week by week, give it a little different setup. But in general, like even their terrain doesn't fluctuate too much. Their distance is basically 5 miles and it's pretty spot on most of the time, maybe within a half mile. Spartan's just gotten so standardized. You pretty much can train for a Spartan race and excel just by knowing, hey, these are the obstacles I'm going to face. This is pretty much the setup and what sequence it's going to happen in. So there's really not much change. The only change really in a Spartan race now is it's either going to be a flat course or it's going to be a really hilly course. It really doesn't challenge you too much, like technical wise, like going through like really hardcore trail. Some of that is due to like safety reasons, I understand that. But you do a couple Spartans, you've done them all. Same with like Tough Mudder. The obstacles just so standardized. They do, like Tough Mudder does switch it up a little bit depending on the venue that they have, like the sequence. But generally speaking, you do know what obstacle is going to come first and what's going to come last. Some of that has to do with the festival area, and they want people to be able to see and enjoy watching their friends and family do an obstacle. So I understand that aspect as well. But surprise people a little bit, become innovative, get us dirtier, challenge us a little bit more. We need to have a company that comes along, like a resurgence of Warrior Dash or terrain race, where it is family friendly and it gets people into the sport. We do have Rugged Maniac, which is hands down one of my favorite OCR brands, because it is a little bit of a challenge. It's only a 5K, but it lets people bring their friends and family, get their feet wet, and enjoy themselves during the race. Whether they're actually like racing hardcore in the elites or they're in the open fields, it actually provides both options for people and an option to do multiple laps, which is nice. And it actually lets you get dirty, gets you wet, and it works your upper body a little bit, your legs a little bit, where some of the other brands don't do that anymore. Like OCR World Championships, it caters, I know it's a championship, so it does cater to more of the elites, but I don't even find that as fun or as challenging as Indian Mud Run used to be in Ohio. Now, I will say, I love Cushman a bunch, he's a really good dude, but some of that stuff was a little bit sketchy, but his race, even though it was once a year, dude, it was hands down harder than OCR Worlds and some of these other brands, which is what he was actually going for, which I respect highly. But these other brands need to take a page out of their Indian Mud Run's book and make things a little bit more challenging and dirtier and even like a little bit sketchy. Like for example, like Indian Mud Run, you were going up this like side of a cliff with like nylon ropes, and then you had to cross this log that was just basically bolted into the hillside. I know it was 100% safe, but it felt a little bit sketchy at times, and I think those are little things that people who fell in love with OCR really enjoyed back in the day, because it got them out of their comfort zone. And I hope we get back to that a little bit, if it's possible. It may not be possible. I still think it is. And just give people that experience and being able to enjoy themselves, and get away from the cash grab and sponsorships and get back to the actual roots. We also need more elites, I guess, in the forefront. A couple years ago, we had tons of elites that we could look up to and respect and want to be like. You know, they were like postered everywhere and across the sport. They were actually allowed to do multiple brands. They didn't have like contracts that said they could only do certain brands, and you know, for prize money, and how to wear certain things at events. You know, people were wearing different brand shirts at different brands. So it was kind of advertising for all the different types, like Spartan, like Battle Frog back in the day, Tough Mudder, Rugged Maniac, Warrior Dash. You would see people wearing like different clothes at all these different brands. Like, I know people in the open waves and age groups still do that, but the elites were able to do that before. It just helped promote the sport as well. I know a lot of things go on with the elite brand right now, between the money not getting paid enough, like getting paid for like travel expenses and prize money for the training that they have to do to be at that elite level, which really hurt the sport as well, because a lot of them moved on to different sports, like running sports, biking sports, Nordic type things. So you don't have people to look up to anymore, and it hurts because it doesn't get the youth involved as we used to have. Like, you go to like a Warrior Dash, you'd have your family, you'd be able to bring like some 12 to 16 year olds to 18 year olds to the events. Some of these now you really can't, because it's just so hard for them. They're not going to have fun. I know they have like kids races at Spartan, but that's not the same thing as actually doing like a Spartan race and allowing the kids to be there. But we do need to fix that elite aspect as well and start promoting our elites, while, this is a big one, while catering to the masses. And when I mean by masses, I mean your age groupers and your open waivers. That's where the money is, and that's where the sport's going to grow. If you don't give the open waivers an experience and the age groupers and experience, they're not going to come back. They're not going to train. They're not going to promote the sport at all. And I say this when I put on like 5Ks and other races. You got to give the people an experience. You got to give them memories, and you got them wanting to come back. And I think the sport of OCR has gone away from that, with the push to become like an Olympic sport and the shutdown of some of those beginner-friendly events. So it's basically like, hey, we're a dominant factor. If you want to do OCR, you have to come and do our brand because there's nothing else out there anymore. So, to me, some of the most fun I've ever had are at these smaller events, like these backyard type ones. There was a church that I've did a couple of times. Like they just put on this little like 5K. There was really nothing to it, but it was fun because the atmosphere itself. There's one up in Erie called Barber Beast on the Bay. It's a 10-mile event. They do it once a year, and I'll tell you what, it's one of the most enjoyable events for OCR that I've ever done. They give you an actual experience, and it's a lot different from other brands. And yearly, they try to be a little bit innovative, bringing in new obstacles and things like that. So I give them mad props for doing what they do, for being a one-year event where they could just keep it cookie cutter yearly, try to save some money, and just throw out the same thing year after year in the same sequence of obstacles. But no, they mix it up. They do things right. It's a little bit dirty. It's a little bit gritty. Their things are still safe, and it's fun. They actually make it a fun atmosphere. And they do cater more to the oval wave, even though they do have a nice elite field that has some really good athletes, but they do cater to the elite field, to the open field, because they want people to come back yearly, and they want to give people an experience while they're raising money for the Barber Institute. And like even Rugged Maniac, when you go to a Rugged Maniac, their festival area is such a welcoming family experience. You do want to come back and support that year after year. Where some of the other brands now, people go, they do the event, and then they leave. I noticed that at like Spartans and Tough Mudders, people just like disperse after the events. Like they're done with the finish line. Now they're gone in like a half an hour because they went away from like the team aspect that really did grow the sport a lot as well. I remember having like the Still City Spartans and Spartan 4-0 and Legion of Mud. I know there's still the big groups like that, but the team aspect, like at those events, it was always like a battle, like who could get the most people at an event, and it made it like more fun as well, just seeing all your friends and stuff coming together and people that you knew, event after event, trying to get that biggest team tent and that coveted like wood block for having the biggest team. And I know like a couple of those brands went away from that. Savage has still got a pretty good festival area, but sometimes their numbers, aren't as high as like say a Spartan or whatever would be. But I do love me a Savage race. I feel like it's a pretty good challenge where it beats me up a little bit, but I'm able to go to work the next week without worrying about being sore or tired and whatnot. So that's always fun as well. And I know Spartan got away from the Spartan miles, as we used to call them, where a sprint might have been like 3 to 5 miles advertised, but here it might have been like 6. So you had to prepare for like a surprise like that. And it wasn't just like, all right, sprint now is a 5K, a super is what, a 10K, and a beast is basically a half marathon. Well, a beast used to be like anywhere from like 15 to 20 miles. You just really never knew because of Spartan miles. You had to like prepare and make sure you're ready to tackle those distances, and you actually didn't know what was actually going to happen on course until like the couple of days before, obstacle wise, like and how things are going to be set up. Because like now that I noticed a lot of year in and year out events, you're basically going the same direction, same route. Obstacles are pretty much set up typically the same way. If they do come out with happen to come out with a new obstacle, they do throw that in somewhere and switch it up, but generally it's the same thing year after year. So why do people want to go and do the same thing year in and year out, spend tons of money, but it's not as challenging anymore, and they're just not getting that same experience and getting themselves out of their comfort zone? The one thing I do like is, which is nice, stardom catcher's pretty much gone from all obstacle course racing. Electricity obstacles are pretty much gone from all except Tough Mudder. But like some of the fire stuff went away, which was just like, not that they were really hard, but I was like, you know, some people might be scared of fire, so it did challenge them to like jump over stuff, little things like that. And I just felt like people just come too clean after an OCR now. And some of that mud made other obstacles challenging, like your grip stuff, or if your shoes got all crappy and muddy, made it a little bit harder to run, to get up walls and stuff like that. And now it's just, you're running through like grass fields or up ski slopes. It just, even from a running aspect, it's just not as challenging as it used to be. And I hope we can get back to that a little bit. I don't know. It's kind of winded, but I just noticed OCR is taking a downward spiral, and I call it the downfall of OCR because it's gone away from its roots when it actually thought it was trying to be good. I don't want to say innovative because it definitely wasn't being innovative, but some of the changes they thought were good actually hurt the sport, hurt participation, and went away from what actually made obstacle course racing great in the first place. So I hope we can get back to that and bring back some more national events where they are family friendly. I mean, hell, I used to like taking some friends to different obstacle course races, you know, getting their feet wet so they wanted to try something harder. But now there's nowhere to take them. And more so with those national brands, like smaller ones, people were able to do like 3 or 4 a year, not have to worry about financial implications. Say like a Warrior Dash, like say where I live, like an hour and a half from Pittsburgh, I was able to go to like 3 or 4 within a 3 or 4 hour period, like a drive period every year, and only spend like 30 to 50 bucks a pop. Where now I have to travel a couple hours to actually like do an OCR, and I'm spending $100 at least as an entry fee to get started. So it's kind of like a financial burden just to be able to do an OCR now, on top of like the training and you know, maybe some vacation days and stuff like that as well. And the venues just seem to be the same year in and year out. I know there used to be some changes before, like, hey, like say for Pittsburgh, hey, where's it going to be this year? Like they did it at PNC Park one year, like a stadium. They used to have it at like Mines and Meadows and stuff like that. Like Pittsburgh used to have a couple different venues for like a Spartan race or like terrain race or even Bone Frog. So you were able to actually like do multiple events, like different brands itself within a year as well, because we had different venues to be able to do OCR. And now we don't, like in that Pittsburgh region, there's really nothing in Pittsburgh now except for like a Tough Mudder, which is still what, like 40 minutes from Pittsburgh, 50 minutes from Pittsburgh. So we do need to get back to that a little bit more, like changing venues up or having multiple brands come to different regions, say like a Pittsburgh region, we need to have like, 3 or 4 good events per year, and not just maybe the occasional one, or like say Philly, like where they have like the Philly Tough Mudder. They need to bring some like other ones like out that way. Like Savage comes out to like, what is it, Albrightsville, and Rugged comes out that way as well. But I guess that would be kind of a poor example. But they're still not Philly area. They're still like, we'll say like an hour or so from Philly. But people are able to drive that short distance, not waste their whole weekend just in drive time, travel, food, gas, and whatnot. So we do need to have some more OCR brands to be able to grow the sport again. Because I know, like, we'll say like my friends in Pittsburgh, we enjoyed going to the different brands each year, like the Bone Frogs, the Tough Mudders, the terrain races, like the Warrior Dashes was still only like an hour and a half for us, like in Ohio. We really enjoyed going to those different brands here, and we would do those 4 or 5 OCRs within that hour and a half drive. Now we really don't have any options, and we have to travel very far just to be able to do an OCR. So it's just kind of killing our want and motivation to even do any. So hopefully we can have more events spring up. They don't even have to be like really challenging. They don't have to be like 10, 15, 20 mile events. They could just be like a 5K, just to get us out there and enjoying ourselves for a couple hours, and getting more people back into the sport and excited for it, so the sport can stay alive. So I know it's kind of a long-winded hot take, as I just said a couple of minutes ago, but let me know what you think. I just hope it gets back the way it used to be.